We speak often of angels, messengers of light, guardians, celestial warriors serving the Most High. We also speak of fallen angels, demons led by Satan who rebelled and were cast out, free for a time to roam the earth, tempting and deceiving humanity. But the ancient scriptures whisper of another category, a terrifying third group. Beings who once stood in the heavens, beings of immense power and perhaps even greater initial glory, whose crime was so uniquely heinous, so fundamentally disruptive to the cosmic order that their fate was not mere expulsion. Their fate was imprisonment. The apostles Peter and Jude speak explicitly of angels who sinned, who abandoned their proper dwelling, and who are now kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains, reserved for a future, final judgment. They reside not on earth, nor freely in the spiritual realms, but in a place the Bible calls Tartarus, a term borrowed from Greek mythology, signifying the deepest, darkest pit of the underworld, a prison even feared by the gods. Who are these specific angels? What was their crime so egregious that it warranted eternal chains, while Satan and his legions were allowed comparative freedom? Why this unique, terrifying punishment? And what does their imprisonment tell us about the absolute holiness of God and the terrifying gravity of sin? Today, we journey into one of the Bible's most profound and disturbing mysteries. We'll investigate the identity of these bound angels, dissect the nature of their unparalleled crime, explore the terrifying prison dimensions known as Tartarus and the Abyss, and uncover the sobering lesson their fate teaches us about the seriousness of rebellion against the divine order. This is the secret of the angels imprisoned in the abyss.
To understand this mystery, we must first make a crucial distinction often lost in popular culture. When the Bible speaks of fallen spiritual beings, it doesn't lump them all together. There appears to be a hierarchy and, significantly, different fates among those who rebelled against God. Satan, Lucifer, the highest-ranking fallen angel, the leader of the initial rebellion, driven by pride. He and his followers were cast out of heaven. While his ultimate destiny is the lake of fire, he is currently described as the god of this age, the prince of the power of the air, actively opposing God's purposes on earth. He roams, accuses, and tempts. Demons, fallen angels, the legions who followed Satan in his rebellion. They too were cast out of heaven, but seem to operate under Satan's authority, interacting with humanity, possessing individuals, spreading deception, and generally causing chaos. They are active, malevolent forces in the world. The imprisoned angels. This is the specific group Peter and Jude highlight. They are distinct. Their fate is different. They are not currently roaming the earth. They are incarcerated, held in everlasting chains under darkness. Peter uses a specific, chilling word for their prison, Tartarus. In Greek mythology, Tartarus was even lower than Hades, a pit of torment reserved for the most rebellious titans and wicked souls. Peter's use of this term, rather than the common word for hell, Gehenna, or the general realm of the dead, Hades, suggests a unique maximum security prison designated for these particular offenders. Jude simply refers to darkness and everlasting chains. Revelation speaks frequently of the abyss or bottomless pit, a place of confinement from which demonic locusts emerge and where Satan himself will be bound for 1,000 years. While the exact relationship between Tartarus and the abyss is debated, both clearly represent terrifying dimensions of supernatural imprisonment. The crucial question remains: what crimes set these specific angels apart? What could they have done that warranted being locked away in the deepest darkness, while their former comrades continued their war against God and humanity on earth? To find the answer, we must go back to a time before the flood, to the earliest chapters of Genesis.
The most compelling clue to the unique sin of the imprisoned angels lies in those same cryptic verses we examined in the Nephilim mystery, Genesis 6:1-4. Let's revisit the scene, focusing now not just on the offspring, but on the actions of the sons of God. Genesis 6:1-2, 4. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. Recall the strong arguments identifying these sons of God, B'nai Ha-Elohim, as angelic beings, based on usage elsewhere in the Old Testament, like Job, and supported by ancient Jewish tradition and New Testament allusions, like Peter and Jude. If these were indeed angels, their actions described here constitute a profound transgression. Abandoning their station, Jude 1:6 explicitly states their sin involved not keeping their positions of authority but abandoning their proper dwelling. They left their designated heavenly realm and role. Illicit union. They engaged in sexual relationships with human women, married any of them they chose, went to the daughters of humans, and had children by them. This crossed a fundamental boundary established by God between the angelic and human order, producing unnatural offspring. These unions resulted in the Nephilim, described as mighty men of old, men of renown, often interpreted as giants or hybrid beings, an unnatural mingling of spiritual and physical, potentially corrupting the human lineage. This wasn't just individual sin, it was a cosmic violation, an act of rebellion that perverted God's created order in a uniquely physical and generative way.
While Genesis 6 provides the core indictment, the non-canonical Book of Enoch offers a much more detailed, lurid account that heavily influenced later Jewish and early Christian understanding of this event. Enoch identifies these fallen angels as the Watchers, a specific class of angels supposedly tasked with observing humanity. According to Enoch, a group of 200 watchers, led by figures like Shemihaza and Azazel, made a pact on Mount Hermon. Driven by lust for human women, they descended, took wives, and taught humanity forbidden knowledge that accelerated its corruption. The sin. Enoch graphically describes their lust and the unnatural unions. The offspring. It elaborates on the Nephilim, portraying them as destructive giants who consumed resources, turned on humanity, and even began to sin against animals. Forbidden knowledge. Crucially, Enoch details the specific secrets the Watchers revealed. Azazel taught metallurgy, making swords, knives, shields, breastplates, i.e. warfare technology. He also taught cosmetics and ornamentation, vanity, deception. Shemihaza taught enchantments and root cuttings, sorcery, occult practices. Others taught astrology, knowledge of the clouds, divination, signs of the earth, signs of the sun, forms of knowledge that led humanity away from reliance on God and towards occult power. In Enoch's narrative, the sin of the Watchers wasn't just sexual misconduct. It was a deliberate act of sabotage. They didn't just corrupt humanity biologically through the Nephilim. They corrupted it culturally and spiritually by imparting knowledge humanity was not ready for or meant to possess. Knowledge that fueled violence, idolatry, and rebellion against God. Enoch then describes the archangels, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, Gabriel, witnessing this corruption, petitioning God, and God subsequently commanding the archangels to bind the leaders of the Watchers. Bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness. And on the day of the great judgment he shall be cast into the fire. Bind Shemihaza and his associates. Bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, till the day of their judgment and of their consummation. The parallels are striking. Specific angels sinning through illicit interaction with humanity, imparting forbidden knowledge, corrupting the earth, and being specifically bound in darkness to await final judgment. This narrative provides a compelling, albeit extra-biblical backstory that aligns perfectly with the descriptions given by Peter and Jude. It offers a detailed explanation for why these angels faced a unique punishment. Their sin was a direct physical and cultural contamination of the human race.
This brings us to the core of the mystery. Satan's original sin was pride, a rebellion within the spiritual realm. He and his followers were cast out, becoming adversaries operating within certain bounds. Why did the Genesis 6 angels receive a different, seemingly harsher immediate punishment, binding and imprisonment? What made their sin qualitatively different and perhaps even more offensive to God? Several factors suggest the unique gravity of their transgression. Violation of created order. Satan's rebellion challenged God's authority. The Watcher's sin challenged God's creation. They violated the distinct boundaries God established between the angelic and human realms. This wasn't just disobedience, it was a perversion of the natural order, a blurring of fundamental categories of being. It was an attempt to corrupt creation at its source. Direct physical and genetic interference. Unlike the primarily spiritual temptation offered by the serpent in Eden, the Watchers engaged in direct physical union with humans, resulting in a hybrid offspring. This raises profound theological questions. Was this an attempt to corrupt the human genome, perhaps specifically targeting the lineage through which the Messiah, the seed of the woman, was prophesied to come? Was it a satanic strategy to make the incarnation impossible by polluting the human race? Did the Nephilim, as angel-human hybrids, possess corrupted spirits or souls, creating beings outside God's intended plan for redemption? This direct biological tampering makes their sin uniquely egregious. Imparting forbidden knowledge. As Enoch details, they didn't just sin passively, they actively taught humanity destructive secrets, warfare, sorcery, divination, that exponentially increased human wickedness and led directly to the violence that filled the earth. They weren't just rebels, they were corrupting instructors, accelerating humanity's self-destruction. Betrayal of a specific trust. If the Watchers were indeed a specific class of angels tasked with observing or guiding early humanity, their actions represent a profound betrayal of that specific duty. They abandoned their post and actively corrupted those they were meant to watch over. Satan's fall was a coup attempt in heaven. The Watchers' fall was an invasion and contamination of earth. While Satan tempts from the outside, these angels intervened directly, physically, and genetically, violating the integrity of God's creation in a way that perhaps even Satan's original rebellion did not. Their sin might be seen as a deeper, more intimate betrayal of the created order, a direct assault on the unique status of humanity made in God's image. The everlasting chains and confinement in Tartarus reflect the unique severity of this boundary-breaking, order-destroying transgression. They crossed a line that demanded immediate, decisive incarceration. Let's explore the nature of this prison. Peter uses the specific term Tartarus. As mentioned, this invoked the deepest abyss in Greek thought. By using this term, Peter wasn't necessarily adopting Greek mythology wholesale, but he was using a concept his readers would understand to convey the utmost depth, darkness, and severity of this specific angelic prison. It's the bottom floor of the cosmic jail, reserved for the worst offenders. Jude describes their state as being kept under darkness in everlasting chains. This emphasizes confinement. They are not free. Their influence, unlike that of roaming demons, is currently restricted. Darkness, both literal, absence of heavenly light, and metaphorical, separation from God's goodness, a state of spiritual blindness and despair. Indefinite duration, pre-judgment. The chains are everlasting in the sense that they hold them securely until the final judgment, the judgment on the great day. Their imprisonment is long-term, but not necessarily their final state. The lake of fire is typically seen as the ultimate eternal punishment. The abyss, mentioned frequently in Revelation, seems closely related, if not identical in function. It's a place of confinement for demonic beings. The locust army emerges from it when it's opened by a fallen star or angel with a key, Revelation 9. It has a ruler, the angel of the abyss, named Abaddon, Hebrew, or Apollonian, Greek, meaning destroyer. It's where Satan himself is bound during the millennium. Whether Tartarus is a specific section within the abyss or a distinct but similar realm, the core concept is clear. There are dimensions of spiritual reality designated specifically for the incarceration of powerful, rebellious entities. These are not places of annihilation, but of conscious torment, restriction, and waiting for future judgment. The imprisonment of these specific angels serves several purposes in the divine narrative. Immediate judgment. It demonstrates that certain sins carry immediate, severe consequences even for powerful spiritual beings. Limiting corruption. It removed these uniquely contaminating influences from direct interaction with the post-flood world, preventing a repeat of the pre-flood genetic and cultural catastrophe. And awaiting final justice. It holds them securely until the final judgment, where their ultimate fate, along with Satan and all who follow him, will be sealed. Their prison is a terrifying testament to God's justice and his power to restrain even the most potent forces of rebellion. The concept of bound angels isn't limited to the Genesis 6 offenders. Revelation chapter 9 introduces another enigmatic group. Revelation chapter 9 verses 14 through 15 release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. So the 4 angels who had been prepared for the hour and day and month and year were released to kill a third of mankind. These 4 angels are also bound, implying they are fallen and dangerous, held under restraint until a specific, appointed time in the future tribulation. Their release triggers a horrific demonic invasion resulting in mass death. Are these 4 angels among the original Watchers imprisoned in Tartarus/Abyss? Or are they a different group, perhaps fallen principalities formerly associated with the ancient empires centered around the Euphrates, like Babylon or Assyria, bound for specific past transgressions? The text doesn't explicitly say, however, their existence reinforces the biblical theme: not all fallen angels roam free. God has sovereignly imprisoned certain powerful entities, reserving them for specific roles in his unfolding plan of judgment. Their binding is temporary, their release timed precisely according to God's calendar. This adds another layer to the mystery. The prisons of darkness may have different sections, holding different entities bound for different reasons and durations, all under God's ultimate control. Satan's own 1,000-year binding in the abyss during the millennium further confirms this principle. God binds and releases according to his sovereign will. So, after exploring the crime, the prison, and the identity of these incarcerated angels, we arrive at the crucial lesson embedded in this dark mystery. Why does the Bible preserve this chilling detail about angels locked away in eternal chains? It serves as arguably the most potent illustration in all of Scripture of the absolute seriousness of sin in the eyes of a perfectly holy God. We, as humans, tend to grade sins on a curve. We differentiate between little white lies and murder, between minor infractions and major felonies. We often excuse our own failings or compare ourselves favorably to others. But the fate of these imprisoned angels shatters our human-centric perspective. These were beings created higher than humans, beings who likely stood in God's direct presence, beings of immense power and intellect. Yet their transgression, violating God's created order, corrupting humanity, stepping outside their designated roles, was met with immediate, severe, and long-term incarceration in the deepest darkness. What does this teach us? God's holiness is absolute. His nature is perfect purity and righteousness. Any deviation, any rebellion is fundamentally incompatible with his being. The intensity of the punishment reflects the intensity of the holiness violated. Sin is cosmic treason. Sin isn't just breaking a rule, it's rebellion against the Creator and King of the universe. It disrupts his order, challenges his authority, and damages his creation. The angels' sin was particularly egregious because it directly interfered with God's specific design for humanity and the earth. There are no small sins in God's economy. While consequences may differ, all sin represents a falling short of God's perfect standard and constitutes rebellion against him. If beings of angelic status face such severe judgment for their choices, it serves as a terrifying warning about the ultimate consequence of unrepented sin for all created beings, including humans. Divine justice is real and severe. The everlasting chains and reservation for judgment on the great day underscore that God does judge rebellion, and his justice is not to be trifled with. There is a reckoning for defying the Creator. Grace is astonishing. Paradoxically, the severity of judgment on these angels highlights the astonishing nature of God's grace offered to humanity. While these angels remain bound awaiting final judgment, God provided a path for forgiveness and redemption for fallen humans through the sacrifice of Christ. The contrast is stark and emphasizes the preciousness of the salvation offered. The imprisoned angels serve as a permanent exhibit in God's cosmic courtroom, a terrifying display of the consequences of crossing divine lines. Their chains are not just punitive, they are instructive. They scream a silent warning across the ages. Take sin seriously. Understand the absolute holiness of the God you are dealing with. Do not presume upon his patience or underestimate the devastating cost of rebellion.
The mystery of the angels chained in darkness is a chilling glimpse into the hidden realities of spiritual warfare and divine justice. While the exact details of their crime and the precise nature of their prison remain partly veiled, the core message is starkly clear. A specific group of powerful angelic beings committed a uniquely terrible transgression, likely involving illicit interference with humanity before the flood, violating God's created order and accelerating world corruption. Their punishment was swift and severe. Immediate incarceration in the deepest abyss, Tartarus, bound in everlasting chains under darkness, awaiting a final judgment. They stand distinct from Satan and his demons, who currently roam free. Their fate serves as the Bible's most potent warning about the terrifying seriousness of sin before a holy God. It shatters any casual or flippant attitude towards rebellion against the Creator. It underscores that divine boundaries are absolute, and violating them carries consequences of cosmic proportions. But even from the depths of the abyss, a message of hope implicitly echoes. The very fact that God's justice is so severe highlights the magnitude of His grace offered to humanity. The chains that bind these angels serve as a dark backdrop against which the light of redemption shines even brighter. The secret of the imprisoned angels is a somber reminder of the reality of judgment, the weight of holiness, and the profound choice set before every created being: submission to the divine order or the terrifying consequences of rebellion.